当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It is November 21st, 2016. This is Waypoint Radio, coming to you large and in charge, coming to you live. Still not live. We're still not live.
That
this
joke
is the second time today
Austin,
I said live.
Austin, can I point out, that joke is not going to make any sense. Because
you gotta listen to this in reverse order.
That joke was made in a podcast that's going to air on Friday.
4 days later.
Spoilers, we pre-recorded Friday's podcast because of the holiday. It's a special email podcast, so definitely listen to that on Friday, during which I say, coming to you live from New York, and it was not live at all.
Not
it's still
even
not.
slightly.
We could be doing this one live, but
That's
we're
true.
not going to for reasons that are going to become clear shortly.
Really shortly. Yeah.
Very shortly. I'm Austin Walker. You find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. I don't know why I'm doing
Wait,
these
what
up
are
top.
you doing? Everything is falling apart.
Patrick. It's been a long day.
It has been.
We're recording
the
at
longest
4:10.
Monday.
We're recording at 4:10 p.m. We normally record at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
So we are 5 hours back.
Just beginning our day right now.
Oh boy. Joining me, Patrick Klepek, Danielle Riendeau.
Hi.
The crew is all here.
We're
How's it
all
going?
here. We're large and we're in charge.
Are we though?
I mean, that's
We
what
are.
you said.
You know what?
At the
I
very
haven't,
beginning, so
I haven't felt large and in charge today.
I know,
Breathe
right?
it in. Breathe it in. All right.
Here we are.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with our homework? Do you want to start with?
Yeah, let's start with homework because that's where we left off. I think
We did.
Sure.
I said, you know what? If this was a meme, this would go like this. Me. Make sure you do your homework and play Dishonored 2. Also me. Didn't play any Dishonored 2.
Oh no!
I didn't have time this weekend. But I'm still I'm like in the middle of the first act of that game. So I think I can still contribute to this conversation.
But you didn't get to
I
the
didn't.
Clockwork Mansion, no? Okay.
I didn't. How is it?
Well, not that I would talk about it anyway, because the let's call it a trick to the way the level operates, and so I wouldn't want to spoil what that trick is. That's
Okay.
part of the reveal. Is very fun, but one of the things that is noticeable about Dishonored 2 is just the intricacy of the level design. If they're much bigger, they feel, but they're not. Okay, that's the wrong word. There's a lot more depth to the areas in Dishonored 2. They're not necessarily bigger. Like in fact, they're probably similar sizes to the original Dishonored. But I just feel like there's a lot more going on in each of the areas. Like one of the ways they accomplish that is just there's a shitload of windows you can go in. Just windows you can go in all over. And they sort of include a lot of storytelling in these apartments that you can find your way into in a way that I've really enjoyed. You know, these small storytelling moments that the last game was good for. And this game is even more so. Like for example, you know, I went into I broke into some guy's apartment, and you know, like he was hiding like a gun underneath his pillow, and then there's like a note explaining why he's doing that. And there's all these like little world building things that Dishonored does really well, and is part of the reason I love, I guess now a series at this point. That I find the sequel is doing really. It's a world that I like being in, even if it runs at half the frame rate. It just, you know, it really wants me to earn my enjoyment.
Your rig isn't able to keep up with the latest games, Patrick.
Emily's too fast.
It's true. Yeah.
What do you think? Actually, that's a question. Are we all playing as Emily Kaldwin?
Yeah, we are.
Patrick?
Yeah,
I'm
it was not a question. If I was gonna play the game once, I wanted to. Part of the reason I chose to play as her was because with these types of games in particular, I have a habit of falling into doing the exact same strategy for how I approach every situation. So it's like if I was going to have a similar set of powers playing as Corvo in the sequel, I was like, hey, I know what worked last time. You know, I'm going to just do this again and make it through these different sequences. Now, granted, you know, any good level design and enemy design is going to find ways to push you to have to do different things. But I'll find that even sometimes I'll brute force my way with stuff that I'm just used to. And so I wanted to purposely play someone that had a similar set of powers. The difference between Emily and Corvo my understanding is not like a hugely different, but they do differentiate in different ways. So I just wanted to try and play as a character that forced me to play the game slightly differently. So like with Emily, and I'm really not familiar with Corvo's moveset. So if there's,
maybe he does have. I don't know if he has new stuff this time around.
I don't.
I actually haven't even looked into it.
Like one of the ones I've had a lot of fun with in Dishonored 2 is where you can create a clone of yourself that runs around, and there's an upgrade for that power that when they kill your clone, it bursts into a cloud of smoke, momentarily distracting some of the enemies. And so one of the ways that I've been using that is, for example, like getting in front of a door, setting a stun mine in front of that door, upgrading the stun mine so it operates twice, and then setting off the hallucination or whatever you're conjuring, so that the guards get alerted, and then those guards come running over, and then they hit the stun mine. The other one that I really love with her is the ability to link enemies together. So
that's domino, right?
Yeah, so they react the same based on what happens to one of them. It's like very useful for taking out groups of enemies where you can just take a bottle, distract one enemy, but they've been linked mentally, and then go up and choke out or kill one of them, and probably talking about that tension between whether you should play passive or play non
lethally or whatever,
non-lethally,
right?
or high chaos. But I've found that to be like tremendously enjoyable, of like taking out like 2 or 3 enemies at once, like by chaining them up and setting up these sort of different sets of pieces. And I find that Emily has just a ton of options for you to manipulate the world in a way that feels at least substantially different than how I played the original game.
Right. Can you domino the doppelganger that you set up?
I don't think so. Oh, so like choke your own self out and take out. I don't think so, but I do know that I saw an animated GIF of so if you jump off of a building from a huge height, the only way for you to not take damage is to either use the blink power if you're Corvo, or the far reach power if you're Emily, and you can use that to kind of like nullify your fall. But you can also conjure a clone of yourself, tackle that clone to the ground, and use that to jump from really high heights and break your fall, which is I remember seeing like something, Harvey Smith, who we had on the podcast weeks ago. I always wonder how much of that stuff is unintended consequences of the stuff they build into the world, and then they suddenly realize that players are going to use it that way, or if that's stuff that they think people are going to use, and then they're just curious to see how it plays out.
How it all comes out. Yeah, totally. Are you finding that you're playing through lethally or non-lethally?
Well, here's the thing. So I try to play through non-lethally, but I think we've talked about this, at least in our like private Discord chats and stuff like that. I don't know if it's just this one, or if I felt this way in the original game and I don't remember it, but it's a game that seems like it would be more enjoyable to play killing things. Like not not being a jerk about it, but like there are situations where the people I'm faced up against, like there's no gray area.
No.
Like,
well, so there is. Did we talk last week about this, about the heart this time?
A little bit.
We brought it up that there are different.
Well, we actually brought it up not last week, but I think Friday the week before. Like, but I'm pretty sure we talked a little bit about the heart and how it's
like talks about the world
stories, and like you point it to people, and it's like some people just want to go home to have dinner with their kids, and some people are like a total asshole.
So that's the thing is, apparently, if you kill the total asshole, so you can hold up this heart, which is like your mother or your ex-lovers, depending on which character you play as, consciousness trapped in this heart. And it will tell you things like, oh, this place used to be way beautiful, and now it sucks. That's my impression of the former empress.
It's really good. It's very close. Yeah.
Or she'll say like, oh, that guy over there is just a huge dick all the time to all his whole family. It wouldn't be so bad if he was dead, I guess. She doesn't say that part, but you should have
written for this game.
You just read it between the lines. Yeah.
Exactly. It was me or Kara Ellison. It was go with Kara. She seems a little smarter.
Clearly.
So they so you can do that and be like, okay. And I have done this while playing. It's like, who's in this room? Who is shitty enough for me to not care if things go wrong? Or like, really, I guess what I do is I look at everybody in the room, and I say like, okay, this is like 4 people who are just doing their fucking job. All they want to do is go home and see their family. All they want to do is like make the world a better place. I'll try my best not to like hurt anybody for real. But there are other times where it's just like, this guy has a gambling den and he takes all the money to invest in evil drugs. And like, okay, well, they're evil. They're evil drugs. They called them evil drugs. I'm going to have, like, I'm going to try to be stealthy and try not to hurt anybody. But if things go wrong, things go wrong. Like, that guy does dog fighting. I'm not going to, if something happens, if he slips on my knife, like, that happened.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that aspect.
Sorry, Michael Vick. Yeah.
I had this situation where, so one of the things I saw someone mention this on Twitter, and then I thought I would start incorporating it into my game, which is that, so when you knock people out, you can just leave them lying about, and Dishonored 2 doesn't have enough enemies that you usually have to worry too often about people stumbling upon stuff, the other people you've taken out. It can happen, but it just doesn't happen often enough for you to really have to worry about it. So usually I just leave the body sitting there. And instead, this one person on Twitter said, like, I try to leave the bodies in places that would really freak them out if they woke up. And I thought that was like a really funny idea. So now I just start taking the bodies and creating like elaborate scenarios with the bodies, like, like shoving 4 bodies into a bathroom, like all in the toilet together. Or,
yes.
So specifically, I had this one scenario where one of the levels involves a museum, and in the center of it are these giant like owls or eagles, these giant creatures that are kind of strung up, and you can use them as platforms to get around the various levels of the world. And so I had taken out one of the enemies. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go perch her up on that owl, and like, whoa, you wake up in the middle of the museum on top of this owl. That's, whoa, you've been onto some shit the night before. And so I set her down, but the game has ragdoll physics or some form of physics, and so I tried to set her down gently. Instead, she just tumbled off of the owl and hit the ground. And from a certain height, the game won't kill an enemy, but at a certain height, the game will register
owl
that.
Height. Yeah.
At owl height, she hit the ground, and I was like, "Oh, I'm fine." I was like, "I'll go down there and check and see if, like, the game will let you know if a character is dead or unconscious if you put the icon over it." And I didn't actually need to be informed of that because I saw the pool of blood forming from their head that told me they probably didn't survive that fall. But one thing that I found frustrating is I had made it through. I was very particular about how I, approached the game and was trying not to kill anyone. And yet in 2 different levels, I've made it to the end, and it says I've killed 2 people.
Right.
Which makes me think it's a scenario where, let's say, so in this game, you have to fight a lot of what they call blood flies, which are just like gross, giant
super
mosquitoes.
They're gross as hell.
Gross mosquitoes. Like you can equip certain bone charms that like increase your mana and HP with if you're attacking them, but mostly you're just kind of slashing your way through a lot of them. And so I'm fairly sure like there's been like a couple of people that I've just accidentally killed because I'm slashing around getting through things and I just didn't realize it. So it's a little frustrating, but I don't, I'm not worried about achievements and things like that. It's more just kind of a bummer. I wish there was some way the game indicated that in a way that like I shouldn't have to go to a stat screen. But I don't know. The game's combat is really good, and I like the fact that it has these sort of conversations like that you were talking about that tries to give you a beyond just a binary moral choice to think about whether you're killing or not killing. But I find it's at a tension with the fact that the game is just more fun when you're engaging with the combat.
Totally. Like, I think that the sword play is really fun. I think that the gunplay is actually surprisingly like there's a punch to the pistols feel almost like shotguns sometimes because of the punch that they have. And I'm doing my best to try to consider Emily Kaldwin like a moral realist in some ways of just like, listen, my there's a coup. I can't not fight back. And sometimes that means I'm not going to go out of my way to just kill a bunch of people, but my job is to do this, and in the process of trying to do this, people are going to get hurt. I will probably continue trying to succeed at each mission objective with the non-lethal option. There was a really cool one in the hospital I was just in.
Some of those get pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one in particular.
Where it's, like, worse than killing?
You could argue yes.
Okay, because see, the first game definitely has those things. I'm just
yeah.
I'm going to erase their identity and send them off to a labor camp.
Yeah.
Isn't that the one you do with the twins?
The brothers.
Yeah, the twins, the brothers.
In the brothel?
Yes, totally.
So there is one, and it's the section you're about to come up to in the Clockwork Mansion, which other than being one of the most interesting levels I've probably ever played in a video game, and you'll understand why when you get to it. There's a lot going on there. Maybe in a week or two we can go back and look at that level without feeling like we're spoiling it for people.
But spoiler cast.
But the choice you're given at the end seems like the obvious one. And for people who haven't played Dishonored, basically what we're talking about is that for each mission has sort of a target at the end, and you have two ways of dealing with that target. One involves just killing them outright, and then another is usually some other way of either neutralizing them or in some ways recruiting them. Like there is just another path.
Right.
But the game did really well in the first one and doesn't do so much until this particular mission. The consequences, the conclusion of the non-lethal path, like felt like I was probably better off. This guy was
just
evil.
This person.
I probably should have killed him because what I did to him and the consequences of that, like, felt worse than just slitting his throat.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, well, I'm excited to get there and see what that is.
Get psyched to feel weird morally.
Finally. Video games make me feel weird.
Every day.
How far in are you, Danielle?
I'm pretty close to the start still. I'm only a couple hours in.
Cool.
But I guess the main thing for me is just that I'm just really excited to be back in that world.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed the first game, even though I didn't quite finish it. Played a little bit of it on stream and was like, oh god, this was awesome. It just feels like kind of the best immersive sim we kind of have right now. It feels like Deus Ex maybe is going a little bit more of an action-y route, and this feels more like a real immersive sim. Like all the stories you're telling me, Patrick, about like trying to put this guard on the owl and seeing what happens with that, and sort of having all these weird things that you can do, and sort of the way that the systems respect player choice in that way and really kind of allow you to do all these rich and weird and bizarre things, and reacts to that makes me feel like this is kind of the best series for that.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
really need to put more time into it. I actually had a different one of those like emergent gameplay moments in Watch Dogs 2 the other night. So to set this up, two things. One, a thing I'm happy about in Watch Dogs 2 is that you can dance now.
Good.
There's an emote button. You hold down the down button on the D-pad.
That wasn't all the reviews for the original Watch Dogs was like, oh man, this game is kind of weirdly racist, and then also I can't dance.
Well, for real, like, I mean...
Yes.
It was weirdly racist, and also it was, and this was like, for real,
joyless.
Well, not just joyless, but also like, you're in this big world that's filled with all of these automatons who have details about their lives and who play the trumpet and who dance and who sing, and you literally cannot interact with them in any way except for by robbing them or hitting them or shooting them. And so I really like that Marcus has the ability to like go around and flirt with people or cheer people on or dance. He has a couple of different things that he can do, or like calm people down. There's been a couple of times where like you can, like, two people are arguing and I've gone over and been like, hey, chill, and then they just like storm off apart from each other, which is really cool because the characters react to whatever you're doing. So in this case, there was a guy who was playing either the ukulele or what's the thing? You squeeze it. You squeeze it. Accordion. He was playing an accordion.
Squeeze. I was thinking like a little horn, like a little.
He was playing the accordion, and I'm like, oh man, dope accordion, and I'm like, I'm gonna hit the dance button. I started dancing, and the guy was like, hey, cool, good, and some other people came over and took took photos of us, and then this like business dude came over and was like, this city, I'm a tech bro, I hate fun. Gentrification is good, actually.
Like San Francisco, actually.
That's what he said.
Very close.
And he like stormed off. And at that moment, I was like, man, I'm going to do a thing I've never done before in this game. I've upgraded these abilities. That's not true. I've done them I used this once before, which was there's an ability that you have, which is like call the cops on somebody. You basically forge evidence that they are criminals, and the police will show up to arrest them. Right? And I think that ability is super shitty because like a lot of the stuff in Watch Dogs 2. You are like standing up against it, but then also get it as an ability. Like you're like, man, it's terrible that the government is spending money to build robot cops and have like untraceable like weapons. Also, check out my cool 3D printed handgun. It's really shitty how the cops are able to designate certain areas as like open season zones, basically, where you can just kill people and it won't go noticed. That's the worst. Algorithms are bad. Also, let me call the cops on this guy and say he's a terrorist, even though he isn't. And so I'm like, whoa, I'm never doing that. That doesn't seem like a thing Marcus would do. That's literally the shit he's mad about. Except this tech bro didn't like that I was dancing and having fun because he's a shitty guy. So I hit the button. I'm like, all right, you're on the list now. And then the police like siren you hear from down the road, and he's like walking by, and I'm dancing. I'm like, haha, he's gonna get his. And then I hear like just thump, and then like, okay, what the fuck just happened? And I turn and look, and I expect him to be like knocked out or dead or something, but he just like turns the corner. The tech bro like walks away. I'm like, what happened? And then I like run out. I start running after him, and I catch out of the corner of my eye the fact that there's a body in the street, and then the police car like drives away. And so I turn to the left, and I look over at the body, and it's just like, a 20-something-year-old girl who, when I like do the connection thing, like the CTOS thing, is just like, oh, she loves whatever, like she's in a commune or whatever, like just a fact about her life. She makes $42,000 a year, which is not enough to live in San Francisco comfortably.
A little bit, yeah.
And she's dead. And then I hear another siren, and the ambulance pulls up, and a guy comes over who's like a paramedic, and he's like, yeah, well, we could take her to the hospital, but it was definitely too late for her. And it's like, well, fuck. Like, I got petty about this dude, and I wanted to give him his just dessert. And in the process, the cops ran over this innocent woman because they were rushing to go capture this terrorist. Also, they didn't even go after that dude. They hit that woman, and they were like, all right, peace. We got to go. They didn't stick around. And it was just this moment of like, well, fuck. Like, that's not the outcome I expected. I expected to feel a little bit guilty when they arrested this innocent guy because he was being a dick. But I didn't expect collateral damage, and I don't know, like, if she ran in front of the car. I don't know if it just timed itself well, but I really love when games produce those sorts of little storytelling moments where it's like, well, cool, this is one of the reasons why you don't fuck with technology like this. Other than that, Watch Dogs 2 remains pretty good. I think it had a couple of missions in a row that I wasn't thrilled with, but then it had a really good one. So I'm back on board and closing in on the end of that. Hopefully I'll have that done by next week, and we'll maybe talk about how it stands up.
I want to point out one of the more. So I was playing in Dishonored 2. They have this, these bone charms are things that you equip so that you can, you get certain traits like, oh, if you jump twice, you gain mana or something like that. So you're collecting these all throughout the world. And one of the new wrinkles in Dishonored 2 is that you can sacrifice them, basically break them, and then forge new ones. So you can. You can sacrifice one to learn the attribute, and then take that attribute and apply it to a new bone charm. And you can upgrade a skill tree so that you can apply 3 or 4 traits together. And one of the ones that I did early was sacrifice the one that allows you to drink water out of a tap and regain your health, and there's another one that allows you to drink water out of a tap and regain your mana. So I made one where you drink water out of a tap to regain your health and mana. So they're like constantly as I'm playing the game, like I never fall below, like you can only have 10 health and mana, like
potions,
canisters, potions. I always have 10. Like, and I play
the game.
You only
use one whenever you see there's another one.
But I always have way too many. I will never fall to a point where I'm ever concerned. But because I'm so meticulous about it, like I will then find myself looking for rooms with a bunch of taps in them, and I'm just running around the room, just hitting like turning this tap, turning this tap, turning this tap, because you can stack them. So I've got like 6 taps of water running at the same time, and watching all my meters go bloop 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 bloop. And I'm like dashing around the room, just like trying to time my taps right so I can get it all up.
Emily's thirsty, she has that thirst.
Thirsty girl.
She is. And it's stuff like that. It's a really goofy, like it's otherwise like a pretty serious game, and yet here I am running around the room like chugging water, trying to get my my health back up.
Yeah,
it's the true origin story for the wet bandits of
Great, good. The thing with that game that is bugging me a little. Not bugging me. I watched some people play as Corvo the other day, and Corvo sounds bad. Corvo doesn't sound good.
It's a new voice actor, right?
Was there a Corvo in the first game, like a voice acting?
Oh,
I
maybe
thought he was
not.
pretty
Maybe he was
silent,
silent. Yeah.
Because it's just one of those things of like, man, like you're a little campier than everybody else in this game.
Yeah.
Like just a little bit chewing that scenery up. Whereas I think Emily is actually fairly good.
Yeah. No. Yeah. She's fine. I mean, even the story of the game is sort of, neither here nor there. Like it's fine. But I'm not there for that in these games.
You're there to poke around, and I guess like I want one that's like the most recent Deus Ex didn't land for me really as well as I'd hoped it would, and I love these games just like you guys do, and so I really was hoping that like I like the world a lot in Dishonored, and so I think like both of you, it's the little moments of storytelling and some light characterization stuff that's really compelling. And I want more of that. I want more of that, and I want it to be applied to the main plot stuff. We've talked before about how often it seems that the coolest bits of games are in the weird nooks and side quests and stuff like that, and not the main plot. And that's something that I don't know. That's an interesting dilemma of modern game design. So something to think about. Other interesting dilemmas of modern game design. So a thing that could happen, let's say, if you were someone who wanted to make a game, and like really poured your heart and soul into it, is maybe you make it really good and then it gets nominated for an award, which is dope. But then the problem could be that you're using IP you don't own. And then maybe the award stops being offered to you. Or not the award, but the nomination is revoked. That happened this week to the makers of two games, Pokemon Uranium and AM2R, both of which were up for Best Fan Work. Best Fan Creation at the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley's kind of award show that I guess you could fairly say that was a spin-off of the kind of VGAs and the VGX Awards. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm kind of bummed by this. I get it. Do you know any other details about it, Patrick or Danielle?
No, they haven't disclosed anything. I think we can make a safe assumption that it was removed because of something with Nintendo. It's unlikely that they would have taking these games off the list just because they felt like taking them off. And Nintendo historically has been extremely proactive / conservative about how they allow people to use their franchises, their intellectual property. So the idea that Nintendo would have a problem with this, and especially for these two ones being ones that they specifically had issued cease and desist orders for, it's one thing if it's a fan project that the publisher has either looked the other way on or has tacitly endorsed, which I think is the case for something like Brutal Doom, which is kind of also playing in some muddy waters. But the people who are involved in that IP have kind of let it be or are okay with it. It would be odd for Nintendo to participate in an award show that is celebrating something that they have said is legally unfounded.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So the other two games that are up in this fan creation category are Brutal Doom 64, like you said, and Enderall: The Shards of Order, which is the big Skyrim like total conversion mod with the whole new world and stuff. We actually had stories run about Enderall, and we also had a story run, a really great story, both about Enderall and about AM2R, which is the other game that was pulled down.
Which is another Metroid 2 remake, in case
correct.
Folks are...
Yeah, so look into those stories. They're great. But it's one of those things that I do totally get it. Of course, this is what happened. But also, it's a bummer to not be able to have those games recognized for the work that's gone into them.
Yeah, it's especially a little crappy, at least from my point of view, just because it's so clearly, the category is about fan art and fan work. It's not saying, oh, this is the best game. This is saying this is the coolest sort of like fan tribute thing right. That, it probably... It would look nice for Nintendo maybe to let them
totally. Like it's also one of those things of like it's the actual thing is like for fan created content such as mods, fan films, and other player content, it's all a gray area. None of that stuff is up and down like capital L legal. It's all it could all fall apart at any moment because someone could send a cease and desist or request politely that you pull it again. We have no idea why these like specifically were pulled from the Game Awards. It's all speculation at this point. And I get that you have to police your marks. You have to police your IP. It's just like both of those projects were really fantastic, and it just sucks that they couldn't be part of this thing. So that's my.
I wish to, and this is kind of my feeling when any of this stuff happens, whether it's, like I've for the last year and a half or so followed like pretty closely like localization issues. Nintendo's at the heart of a lot of these, in which I think a lot of people's frustration is the fact that there's such a closed box. And Nintendo's not alone in this. But when, if Nintendo came out and outlined, here's why we can't be okay with this, and here's why it's a problem for us as a company, and here's why we had to take it down, but we appreciate the passion that fans show, I think people would have a much different response to what is probably something they legally have to do, but the way they go about it makes it feel shady, anti-fan, and creates sort of a antagonist relationship with a company who has some of the most beloved franchises and characters. Like, they're the company that is the most aggressive about this stuff, yet owns the franchises and characters that people are the most passionate about doing it for. And if you look at the way that like Sega has kind of recast Sonic, even in just social media in the last like 2 years or so, even going so far as to have their social media team go on the comments for trailers for mods that people have made and say, this is cool, man, keep doing your thing. Now, granted, they may be doing that because they might realize like we don't have a lot of credibility.
We have to keep what we got.
And it's unfortunate that I don't expect Nintendo to go on a YouTube comments and say something snarky, but even just if their PR people put out a statement that was like, we appreciate the hard work that people have put into blah 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 blah, but
unfortunately,
because we have to protect, and if they gave an example like, here's how this would work out if I don't know, it's just they're like, a mild bit of transparency would go a long way, and this only fits a cynical, ugly mold of how they have treated their fan projects over the years. In a way that I understand why it happened the way it did, but the fact that they're going to continue to remain silent about it is only going to make people more frustrated about their relationship with a company that Nintendo needs their fans, right? Like they're not. It's not like they're sitting on the top of the world anymore, and it's
especially when you're about to launch a new console where you're going to need ambassadors for that thing.
Yeah, and they'll be fine. Super Mario Run is probably going to be a big hit, and that's.
Do you think that's what's happening though? Do you think that they're running that calculus in their heads, which is like, all right, what is the worst outcome for pulling these things from this Game Award thing or from setting the cease and desist for AM2R? Is it like people get mad about it for 3 days and then move on with their lives, and so who cares? Whereas the worst possible outcome for letting it stay up is some terrible legal crisis.
I have to assume the folks in America are probably doing some of that calculus, but I don't know if the folks in Japan are doing that, and that's maybe...
so you're thinking that that's a thing I've definitely heard, but again, we can't speak with authority necessarily.
Don't know. That was just a guess.
I can speak with some authority, talking to because I follow a lot of these issues. I've talked to various folks over the years, on and off the record. And if I was to sort of sum up what I've heard about the American divisions are well aware and not happy with the whole scale of some of these decisions. I'm speaking broadly, and I'm not speaking
You're not
specifically
speaking about Nintendo
or any company in particular, but I would say in a broad spectrum, a lot of the American divisions, look at YouTube stuff, like all these YouTube takedown notices that
the
happen.
Persona 5 stuff that happened this year.
Like the companies on each side of these, like they have different approaches to this, and also it's just the relationship that different countries and cultures have to the idea of like appropriating intellectual property is different. And just in Japan, my understanding is the calculus is just, this is ours, you can't do what you want with it. And so that applies to YouTube, that applies to these fan projects. It is a very simple, they're not thinking about, are people going to be angry, are they going to get over it? It is literally, you're not allowed to do this, so you're not allowed to do this. And in America, or I guess maybe more in Western culture, there has been an approach that's more like, well, maybe it's not technically legal, but it helps us.
If it sells more copies in the long run.
The thing that's weird is that there is also it isn't, I don't think, as simple as like East versus West here, because Japan has a huge culture of fan games.
Yeah.
We just ran a story on the Toho
yeah.
project, which is a specific thing, but that has a ton of Dojin games. Dojin are like fan games. And there's another kind of fan game connection travesty happening at the Game Awards this year. I'm protesting. You should be protesting. You know, right now in the Game Awards, every category can have up to 5 nominees. For instance, best role-playing game includes Dark Souls 3, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Blood and Wine, World of Warcraft Legion, and Xenoblade Chronicles X. I'm not sure why Deus Ex is there necessarily, but that's not my beef. My beef is if you turn and look at best fighting game, there are only 4 games. 4 games in the best fighting game category. Those 4 games are Killer Instinct Season 3, that's a season, that's not even a new game, King of Fighters 14, Pokken Tournament, and Street Fighter 5, which better not win because it didn't do a good year. This is a bad year for Street Fighter 5. So, my problem is that's only 4 games. There's an extra slot there, and I know I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit. I nominated another game that is not on this list, and that game is your best game of the year in the fighting genre and mine, Nitro Plus Blasterz, Heroines Infinite Duel Blasters with a Z, just to be clear. Nitro, I'll say it one more time, Nitro Plus, you spell out the plus, it's not a plus sign, it's stylized as a plus sign on the art, but it's actually spelled out NITROPLUS space, Blasters with a Z, BLASTERZ, Heroines Infinite Duel, which is the sequel to the Dojin game, Nitro Plus, but in this one it's an actual plus, the plus symbol, it doesn't say plus with a PLUS. Nitro Plus Royale, or Royal, depending on what territory you're in, Heroines Duel. You see, the new one, it's not Royal or Royale, it's Blasters, and also it's not a regular duel, it's an infinite duel. That game is really good, and should be on this list. That is the case I'm making. Go to Twitter and Facebook and use your hashtags. Use them. The hashtag we want Nitro Plus the Game Awards. Nitro hashtag building the Blasters. Hashtag Infinite Duel. I want to Infinite Duel you, Jeff Keighley, over your lack of including Nitro Plus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel on the Game Awards. I know that the game has other fans. Jeff Gerstmann and I think that this is a quality game. I believe Jason A. Stryker does too. That has great characters in it. One of them has a sniper rifle. Her super move is you go on, you jump up off the screen, and then suddenly there's a reticle on the screen. And instead of doing punches, you have a sniper rifle, and you have to snipe somebody. And that's really fun and good. There are support characters. There are people from that's anime people in this game. Patrick, I know you're a big anime fan. Well, if you love the anime,
are you still talking? I don't know. I blacked out like 2 minutes ago.
If you love the anime Psycho-Pass, guess what? Psycho-Pass is real in Nitro Plus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duels, where you can play as the character from Psycho-Pass who has her gun that determines if you are a criminal or not. And it turns out everybody in this game is a criminal because then she shoots them.
Oh, wow.
Austin,
Nitro Plus Blasterz.
you're a criminal for making me sit through that.
Nitro Plus Blasterz Infinite Duel. Heroines Infinite Duel. It's good. It should be on this list.
It really should.
It should just be on this list.
Just make it Waypoint's Game of the Year and just move on.
Did I do that? Is that a thing?
What did we do for our Game of the Year this year? Oh, we just gave it to this anime fighting game and just moved on.
Nitro Plus Blasterz Heroines Infinite Duel.
Good.
Thank you for letting me do my stump speech.
Good.
On Nitro Plus Blasterz.
Anime 2016.
Oh, things would be
2018.
2018. Midterms. Anime midterms.
Oh, the anime midterms. They're going to be... I hope the turnout is good. That's all I can say.
Me too. You got to get out there and vote for your anime kids. All right. I got that off my chest.
Right.
I've been saying it's been a long day, and that's part of it. I've had that just
It's all
right
out now.
here.
Yeah.
Right here. There's a super move where a band comes on, they play music. Okay.
Awesome.
What's up?
Good.
You got to stop.
Okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go into the question bucket.
Okay.
I'm
Let's
gonna
get
find
that
us a
bucket.
question.
We spent a lot of time in the question bucket today.
I know. We're going to go in today again anyway. We're going to
Digging
go
deep in the bucket.
deep in the bucket. Give me a number. Give me a number.
Danielle, you give a number.
You know
1
what? It's
to
the
28.
21st. 21.
Yeah, it's the 21st. 21 today. Yeah. Okay. This is from Anthony in Connecticut.
Good.
Hey, I've been a fan of yours for some time now and thoroughly enjoy reading the articles you all write and listening to the recordings you put out. To commemorate the start of the new audio journey in the world of podcasting, I thought a good question would be, how did you get into the world of podcasting? Nope, that's not what it says. I'm still in anime mode. I have to bring it back down. How did you get into the world of games journalism? What are your histories in the field, and how did you come to be where you are now? I figured this would be a good place to start to establish a baseline for people who are new to you. I think the last segment is a good place to start. I think everyone knows who I am now. show
Now
my
they
whole
know.
ass out on the internet.
Now they know.
So where did you? What is the arc for both of you on your way here?
I went to college for philosophy and psychology and fine art. I went to
Nice.
graduate school for film. I got my master's degree in visual media art. I immediately started working at the American Civil Liberties Union. And then freelance writing and also teaching. I had a few jobs. And one day, the call came up. I wrote a ton of freelance stuff for a million different publications. And Polygon was looking for a dedicated reviewer. So I was there. And then I did a lot of video there. And I did a whole bunch of stuff. And then the rest is history.
That's a pretty good arc. How about you, Patrick?
Geez. Okay. So, when I was younger, much younger, when I was in, I went to E3 for the first time when I was, I can't remember if it's 13 or 14.
A baby.
E3 98, and it was Atlanta. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. Happened to read a website called Gaming Age, which, if you're familiar with the message board, NeoGAF, the GA part of that is Gaming Age. The F part is the Gaming Age forums. At some point, they split off for reasons that are very interesting, but not worth getting into.
Has someone written that history? They must have.
I don't know if that's
People's
formally
history.
written somewhere. I feel someone did a big feature on NeoGAF at some point. That might have been a one-up at some juncture, but Lord knows if that has been archived in any way. And they had an IRC channel, and I happened to just find my way into that IRC channel, hung out there. That IRC channel was connected to another IRC channel called VidGames on FNet, if people are familiar with.
Oh, yeah, of course, FNet.
Was it FNet or EFNet?
It's EFNet. It's EFNet, but I always said FNet.
That's okay.
Phonetic, yeah.
It's like the NES, SNES thing, kind of just depend on.
Exactly.
And a lot of people that hung out in that IRC channel were editors for EGM. And they just happened to, before everything moved to San Francisco, EGM was actually produced out in a place called Lombard, Illinois. So I got to know a lot of the folks who wrote for EGM. I got to know them through this IRC channel, and then was able to go and hang out at their offices. And then those people went on to move out to San Francisco and become part of 1UP and official Xbox Magazine, official PlayStation Magazine, and Computer Gaming World, which I guess later became Games for Windows Live magazine. So anyway, I had this sort of foundational, total happenstance set of contacts in the industry. And so in high school, this was kind of happening in parallel, where a high school teacher had said, "Hey, have you ever thought about what you want to do when you go to college?" And I was like, "No, nope, definitely am not giving it any thought at all." And they said, "Well, you seem like a pretty good writer. It's possible you could maybe turn that into something if you're." I was like, "Well, I'm not a very good creative writer." And they said, "Well, at this time, newspapers, journalism was a very viable path. There were tons of jobs in it back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so I went into journalism in high school, became the ESC of my high school newspaper, and then, for lack of any better ideas whatsoever, did journalism in college, which is a completely useless degree. I do not recommend doing it. It wasn't completely useless, but almost anything else would have actually been more complimentary to what I ended up doing than actually doing journalism in college. But it was easy. I got to drink as much as I wanted on the weekends and not worry about it. So in college, I would split my time between drinking and my degree, and then I would also be freelance. I was really my degree was just an excuse to get through 4 years while I was mostly freelancing on the side and starting to get paid for it. So I was starting to do reported features and reviews for a bunch of different magazines and 1UP as they were up and coming. And that, I got lucky when I was graduating. Luke Smith, who is now the design director on Destiny, which is always a weird thing to say. He was formerly the news editor at 1UP. He left. I was working under him for a number of years, and then I was just the next man up. They called me out, and I came out to San Francisco and bounced around to 9 different jobs or whatever it is at this point.
I
went from, I was at 1UP for 6 months, and then I was poached to go work at MTV News. I was there for a year. Then the 2008 financial collapse happened, and I was laid off. And then I went from MTV News to G4, and then G4 told me if I wanted to be on TV, they already had too many dudes, so I was not going to really be on TV. They said if you were a woman, you could be on TV right now because you're really good. I was like, that's deeply cynical and sexist and weird, but okay, that's all right. So I left there. Was there for a year. I went to EGM when that got rebooted, which might technically still exist. Out in LA, it was.
I forgot that you did that.
Yeah.
Oh, I try to forget on a daily basis. It was the worst job I ever had, and for reasons that I'm still afraid of getting legally sued for. I will never talk about why, but it was awful. I was only there for like 7 months, and then I went to Giant Bomb. Was there for almost 4 years. And then some guy named Austin Walker stole my job.
I don't know who that is.
I got fired. No, that's not true.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's definitely not true. And I was at Kotaku for almost 2 years, and now
we're here.
Woof.
Yeah, nice.
Woof.
That's an arc. I have like a very unconventional. Not that like your stories are super conventional. Danielle worked for the ACLU. But I think IRC comes up. I guess IRC actually is going to come up in my story too, in a weird way. I was not.
Were you Were you one of those down that assholes?
No, I wasn't. I think
man.
I don't know. I actually don't remember where eventually our thing was just on a private IRC server that someone had
one
set
of
up.
those people. Okay,
Yeah,
I
one of those
gotcha.
people. So I went to college for philosophy with a minor in English. Also philosophy, yeah.
Awesome.
And I enjoyed my philosophy degree, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. But also, yeah, it was very much a like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm interested in this, not because I think it'll lead to a job. There's lots of me like telling people like, Stephen Colbert has most of a philosophy degree. I don't know that he ever finished, but he definitely almost has one. Oh, these other famous people. This CEO has a philosophy degree. That means it's okay that I have one now, maybe.
Yeah.
And I got out of college. I actually was supposed to go to grad school way earlier. I was supposed to go to grad school in 2007. And a combination of things made me immediately drop out. And there was two things. One was there was like this email chain going around from all of the different people. One was I couldn't afford to go to grad school, straight up.
Yeah, that's the
I
biggest. Yeah.
And I could have pushed and tried to get loans and all of that. But what happened was this email chain was going around about the incoming class. And that email chain was super intimidating of just like, oh, I'm not ready to be here. And so when I applied for a bunch of scholarships and grants and stuff, none of that came through. And I was like, okay, do I want to take out a loan for this thing that I don't feel very prepared for? Like, these are people who've been around the world. These are people who have done way more intensive like undergrad programs than I had done. Like, I'm not gonna say I was a slacker. I was a slacker in undergrad. I missed a lot of classes and did well enough despite that. But was very much despite that, not like I was not necessarily applying myself as well as I should have been. And so I ended up just living in New York and getting a bunch of weird jobs. I was a trademark researcher for a while. I kind of was a proctor and like set up classes for this program that let like clothing designers do their business side of clothing design. Very weird stuff.
Cool.
Weird. And on the side started writing here and there. And I ended up making this one really long post in defense of Call of Duty 4 on Kotaku. This is in 2008 or something, 2007,
Okay.
2008. That was like, actually it wasn't on Kotaku. Kotaku had reported at the time on this guy from the Miami Herald, or maybe not the Herald, it was some Miami newspaper, writing about how cynical he was about the world of video games and how his son was playing this war game, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And I wrote this like essay length Austin Walker thing that was like, actually Call of Duty 4 is really good about critiquing war and dehumanization. And I talked about the contrast between the level where you're in the like gunship, and then cutting from that to the one where you're like on the ground, and how like on the gunship side it's all super dehumanized and like just like people very calmly talking about killing lots of people, and then on the ground it's just like muddy and gross and you're weak and being chased and it's miserable. And I really liked that, and so I wrote this whole big thing about that, and some people there noticed me who, I was a Kotaku commenter at that point, and also at that point I was already thinking about getting into games journalism because the stuff at GameSpot had happened. Jeff had been let go from GameSpot, and that had already made me like, I should write about games. And then soon after I wrote that thing, EGM shuttered, and 1UP fired a bunch of people. And I'm like an old school EGM. I grew up on EGM. I grew up loving 1UP. The 1UP show was like so ahead of its time. And when that shut down, I was like, oh shit, I want to write about games for a living. Like, there was this gnawing thing that like, oh, one day I'll have a review in EGM. And that isn't going to happen anymore, at least not until this other new different EGM showed up, which doesn't, it has some heritage to the old EGM, but it's not like...
It's got the same name.
So I ended up at that point trying to figure out how to do it. And I ended up becoming the North American editor of this site called One Last Continue, which was this like there are a billion of these sorts of sites that are like, oh, it's like C tier, a bunch of people like barely able to put 2 pennies together, barely able to make rent on whatever ad income we had coming in. It's completely gone from the web now. The only other person who's still in games from that site, I think, is Sean McIlroy, who does like web support stuff over at Vox now. At Polygon. Yeah. So Sean was the Euro editor while I was the North American editor.
It's a good dude.
And I was in a chat with them that were like a bunch of Kotaku fans at the time. Again, this is like the mid 2000s. This is Crescente era Kotaku, or the late 2000s. As Steven was coming on, like I ended up getting in because I ended up being like on terms with like Steven and Guy Kroll and some other New York games writers. Because at the time, the New York scene was like barely a thing. And I started hanging out with those guys. And then the economy fell apart. And like the little game site that I helped run couldn't do it anymore. And my side gigs all dried up and I couldn't find freelance work. And Phil Kohler, who at the time was at Game Informer, was trying to get me something happening there. And that didn't really work. And I bring up his name because eventually I would go back to grad school, do all the grad school stuff I was doing. And while doing my PhD, Phil was like, oh, you should start streaming with me. And so I started doing streaming with Phil Kohler and the Stream Friends. And then from there, started freelancing like more regularly and doing Game Crit stuff. And that was only like 3 or 4 years ago, and very quickly spun up to like, okay, getting back into this full time and Giant Bomb and then here. So very weird path through academia plus streaming plus you like struggling to do it on your own. And I guess like for me, the lesson of all of that is just like, there is no one way to get into games journalism. It's a question we get asked all the time. And the question is like so much more complex now than it was a decade ago. I could tell you how to get into games journalism 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But now like it's tough. And I think you need to be increasingly multi-talented. You need to be ready to do podcasts. You need to be ready to do video stuff. Like Danielle, the fact that you do video production is not a thing we didn't miss. Do you know what I mean? Like we go, oh wow, yeah, she does video production.
I always throw that in people's faces when I'm like going for a job. I'm like, oh, I got my master's in this.
Right. Any of us could edit a podcast. Do you know what I mean? Like we needed to have that talent to get us where we are now. Yeah. In some ways. So that's to me is that sort of versatility and flexibility is sort of shitty. I would love it if I could just have someone who's all they do is write. Yeah. I hope to hire that sort of person in the near future, but it's so much easier to be like, oh, I need someone who can do a billion things just in case the world is on fire one day.
And the world is always on fire. Like with what we do, it's sort of like things move really fast and sometimes things don't work out with like the dedicated person who does this in whatever department. So it's always nice to be like, okay, just do the thing, make the thing happen.
Yep.
So
So you know, if you're someone who wants to get into this industry, it is so hard for me to be like rah go do it. But at the same time, I love seeing new voices get into the industry. So if you think that you have something to say, like find yourself an outlet, whether that is YouTube videos. There are people out there who are doing really creative stuff over the last couple of years. People like Aaron Signal and Heather Alexandra are fantastic on YouTube doing YouTube crit. There are lots of people who are breaking in. Obviously, Gita Jackson just started over at Kotaku, and she started as a freelancer and a Twitter person. There are ways to do that work, I'm just gonna
gals. I want to throw them out there
too.
They're doing rad stuff too.
Yeah, that stuff is so good. Yeah. I love them to death. There's some fantastic people out there who just do wonderful stuff, and it's a lot about finding your niche and like finding out how you can identify a place for you to come in. Like we said earlier, we pre-recorded an episode for Friday where we answer a bunch of questions, and something like this comes up. So I'll forward you if you have more questions about that to Friday, where we will talk a little bit more about that. I think that's going to do it for today. I think we made it. We've been podcasting a lot today.
We did it,
guys. This whole day has been. We'll do 4 podcasts. Oh, what's that? Did I say 4? That means that there's a third podcast? That means there's another podcast coming? Oh, is it maybe going to be a podcast entirely devoted to the beautiful lore of Nitro Plus Blasterz Heroine Infinite Duel? No, it isn't. It isn't. We're gonna have another podcast tomorrow, actually, about a story that will run by then. I hope.
It's a very special episode.
We've been working on a big story that it's taken a lot of checking and double checking and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, and I think we're just about ready to move forward on it. So look for that tomorrow. It's pretty dope. Anything else you want to talk about coming this week?
No, just play Pokemon. It's great.
I need to play Pokemon.
It's so good.
I haven't played
It's
it
the
at all.
game you need when you just want to chill. It's perfect.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
How about you, Patrick? Anything else big coming down the pipe?
I'm just trying to finish because I won't be near my computer after Thanksgiving begins. So I'm going to try and finish Dishonored before I am separated from my computer.
Get it done. I believe in your ability to do that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good job.
For Patrick Klepek and Danielle Riendeau, for Bowen, who helped us by letting us use his track "Miss You" off of his EP, "Pale Machine." Got it. It's in my head right here. It's a good song. For everyone else who's involved and who helps us make this show every week and helps us on the website, which you can find at waypoint.vice.com. I hope you all have a good holiday. Tune in again tomorrow to listen to our podcast about the story we're running. It's pretty cool. Have a good week otherwise. Just hopefully you get some time off. Hopefully you can spend it with the people you love, and hopefully none of those people are terrible racists. If they are, persevere. You can do it. I believe in you.
Persevere.
Peace.